I have the pleasure of introducing tonight Justin Hammerling, who is AVP of Innovations at ProMedica Innovations. He's the initial point of contact for inventors who are interested in pursuing potential commercialization of their inventions right here at ProMedica Innovations. He provides the inventors insights into the commercialization process and connects them to available resources within ProMedica, Cleveland Clinic, and other alliance partners. Justin works with both ProMedica Innovations and Cleveland Clinic Innovations teams to identify potential marketing and commercialization options for inventions. Obtaining both undergraduate and master's degrees from University of Colorado, Justin has innovations and project management experience with Fortune 500 companies. With him tonight is Joe Gough. He's an award-winning entrepreneur, angel investor, and owner of the Brainstorm Creative Consulting. It's a multimedia and intellectual property consulting firm. His patents, investments, and productions include television, digital media, educational tech, robotics, gaming programs, the Internet of Things, and entertainment technologies. Whew, dude.
I started young.
Well done. You started young. Joe is also the founder, CEO, and president of Homeward Healthcare, our headliner tonight, and we're going to hear a lot more about that soon. But first, Justin Hammerling.
Thank you, Gene, and thank you everyone for coming out. This is my first Startup Toledo event too, so this has been pretty amazing to see what the network of entrepreneurs and the startup community here is in Toledo. This is really outstanding to see that there's this much going on in Toledo. ProMedica Innovations, we started about 3 years ago with the goal of helping our local inventors, by that I mean our employees and inventors within the community, develop and commercialize intellectual property around healthcare with the notion of improving patient wellness and improving outcomes in people's lives. We're a healthcare institution, and one of the things that a physician's limited to is you can only help the one person on the table at that one time through your knowledge. ProMedica Innovations gives the inventors and the physicians the ability to help hundreds, if not thousands, of patients by improving the way we provide health care, and improving surgical techniques, improving medical devices, and improving the entire patient care experience. So that was what our mission was from ProMedica Innovations, is to improve healthcare by improving medical delivery. When we started 3 years ago, we had this notion of having an incubator to help be the landing point for some of the technologies that we created. We knew that when you commercialize something, you either go the route of creating a license and giving it to a bigger company, and they can go ahead and make their device somewhere in Tennessee or China or wherever they wanted to go, or you can go ahead and start a new company around that technology and create jobs and improve wellness and outcomes by providing jobs and also building better devices. So we went with that notion in creating an area to foster new company startups coming out of ProMedica Innovations. Originally, it was just going to be for technologies that came through ProMedica's pipeline. We had no idea that a community like this existed. We really didn't. That was the only reason why we're internally focused on any of our projects, was we just didn't know you guys existed. We're a healthcare company. We're pretty focused on what we do. After our first summit, which we have annually in June, we were shocked, to be honest, with the entrepreneurial community and the startup community in Toledo, especially around healthcare. And once we saw that, we changed our mission statement from focusing on just ProMedica technologies, but improving the region by providing clinical support and financial support to startup technologies within Northwest Ohio. So with that, we were given a mandate. We took this shell space, which is 6,200 square feet. We created it into a life science incubator. We can house 4 companies in this space. We're at capacity. Just today, we signed our 3rd company into our suite, a new joint venture. We've created 20 plus jobs in the region that are non-ProMedica jobs through the 3 startups that we have in here, and we're hoping to create a lot more as our strategic investments pay off in these companies. We are not trying to own a space. We're not trying to be the only resource and covet our intellectual property. What we're trying to do is help consolidate all of the knowledge and foster it out. That's how we grow and win. We have a mandate to create 200 new jobs in the Toledo area that are non-ProMedica jobs. These aren't jobs that we can go out and hire a whole bunch of nurses for and we meet our goal. Our goal is to create strategic investments in startups to expand the employed population within Toledo and be a starter for economic growth and regrowth within Toledo. We're moving facilities downtown in order to spur growth downtown. We're going to be looking for a new incubator space in downtown Toledo. We're going from 6,000 to 60,000. Our goal is to help support companies, many like yours, that are focused in healthcare, giving them an opportunity to have a world-class business environment with clinical support at a low cost so they can grow and prosper. We have direct ties into our physician community to help our incubator companies grow, to get clinical knowledge they wouldn't normally get as a patient from an outside perspective, to get physicians and people within the process giving their knowledge to the startups so they can be better. We have a strategic investment fund of several $million allocated to us in the long term over the next 10 years by ProMedica that won't be touched in order to reinvest into startup companies that are not our own. We're in the process of investing in every one of the incubator companies to help them grow. That is our mission. Our mission is not to be the world's largest medical device supplier. Our mission is not to be the world's largest IT healthcare provider. Our mission is to be the launch pad for successful companies and to grow Northwest Ohio. That is what ProMedica Innovations' goal is, focused on the healthcare side. We have the three companies in here. Our medical device company, VentureMed Group. They've started 3.5 years ago. They're already selling their devices in Europe. They are 1 month away from having an FDA approval. Fingers crossed, the FDA is very, very supportive of that. Their device was my boss's and the founder of ProMedica Innovations' brainchild. It went from being a napkin sketch to being prototyped to using local resources to now being manufactured here in Toledo as much as we can and shipped over to Europe. So things that people are building here in Toledo are saving lives in Germany and Poland. And once we get the FDA, it's going to be across the United States. We just signed Capion, which is our joint venture partnership with KionSoft, a mobile enterprise software company that we've been working with for the last 1.5 years to develop some of our apps. We've had such a great partnership with them that we're starting another company. We're growing jobs in here, software jobs. We're going to be hiring 3 right now. We're going to be growing fast from the workflow of it. But we're pulling people out of Silicon Valley and moving them to Toledo because of the cost of living and for the ability to work here. We've got 15 projects that we're going to be working on with Capion internally from ProMedica Innovations that are going to be creating jobs and improving patient outcomes. Homeward Health is a non-ProMedica technology. This is a company that they had their own IP coming to us. They've been in our incubator since we opened up our doors, and they focus on improving patient outcomes by reducing readmissions and making sure that you've got the necessary tools and resources once you're discharged from the hospital space to make sure you don't come back in. And this is a technology that will greatly improve patient outcomes and well-being and is outside of ProMedica's purview. They came into the incubator. Now we're a strategic investor in the company. But this is just an example of what ProMedica Innovations' mission is. It's not to own a Homeward Healthcare, find out what they do, and copy them. It's to help Homeward Healthcare grow and be successful. Because if they're successful in healthcare, then we're successful in providing better outcomes. So with that in mind, I'll turn it over to Joe Gough, Homeward Health's CEO, and he'll be able to tell you more about what you guys do. So thank you.
Well, first I want to thank everybody, and I want to thank not just the attendees for showing up and the leadership for organizing it, but really from a community standpoint. When I first got acquainted with the Northwest Ohio area, you couldn't have projected or predicted, or I was flying back and forth doing digital media projects between an office that we had in New York and Detroit, and I just sold a healthcare robotics company, the little robots that you see buzzing around the hospital, dropping off lab samples and linens and things of that nature. The Robo Courier we sold to Swisslog in 2011. And I got invited to this Pistons game. And I'm in the suite at the Pistons game, and I see this great big guy with the glasses in the back. And he asked me, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. I've been producing these digital media things, and I want to get into another startup and kind of get into the ecosystem again." And he said, "Well, have you ever been to Toledo?" I said, "Well, of course. I've been through Toledo. I've dealt with the construction and the orange barrel blossoms every spring coming out." But I didn't know much about the region, and he did such a good salesmanship job of what was happening. I came down. And there's a little cheat to the biography that Gene gave. When you have a radio show about innovation in a city the size of Detroit, like I did for 4 years, you get involved with a lot of projects. So the fact that I had all those different kind of little careers and projects is a little bit just kind of periphery to the radio show. So. Don't think that I ran around and was kind of fractured in 50 different projects. I ended up investing in some projects, and then when I came down here to Rocket Ventures with Brandon, it was more along the lines of what the University of Toledo at the time wanted to do with consumer-facing technology, which is something that they hadn't really developed any expertise in. They had solar technology, and they had some green tech and some things that were interesting at that, which is totally not my area. But they had some application layer stuff that they really didn't have a place for. So when I came down here, I thought, wow, consumer-facing tech in Toledo. I don't know. And every single day, I would get introduced to another great idea. And I mean, it became, it was my running joke with my wife. I would come home and she would go, before I even asked it, "Okay, so what's the next great inventor that's coming out of Toledo, Ohio?" But it really was. We had so much really good deal flow coming in the doors, and it was just a shame that the infrastructure wasn't in place to support it well enough. Just wasn't in place to support it well enough. You had misaligned incentives, and I won't get into the politics that you all probably know much better than I do. But that completely changed when I was introduced to the ProMedica piece of this, because ProMedica did have the resources. They were thinking infrastructure. And when I first walked into this place, it was just this empty shell. And Justin had this vision that, I mean, if I could go back in time and show you and put you in the room, if we had that 360-degree camera back then, when he first walked in here, I have to give you so much credit, Justin, because you actually brought the vision that was expressed to us when this was nothing is almost exactly like I pictured it from the description that you gave us. It has truly come into full fruition, which is pretty amazing in any region, let alone a region like Detroit, Toledo, Rust Belt, working class region, where we always get the short end of the public perception at the national scale when we're kind of looked down upon. And when you look at the things that are going on, the way that they have gone about a methodology that I think is incredibly sustainable. And that's really what I look for. You got to love the people that you're working with. So are the people creative? Is the project in your wheelhouse? Can you add to it with significance? And then is the infrastructure in place that's actually going to be able to support it across a long spectrum? And I think that for once, I can say that everything is aligned. And I'll tell you, Detroit doesn't have this. I'm well acquainted. I've done a lot of deals with the DVP guys, and the whole Detroit world of trying 15 different things, and all of a sudden now they're going to be the gaming capital of this, and then the next day they're going to reinvent workforce productivity, and here's another payroll software. And all they're doing is eating their own dog food up there, right? Dan Gilbert can't buy every company that comes out of Detroit Venture Partners, right? So you really have to think sustainably about what you're going to do if you don't have the Dan Gilberts of the world to swoop in and put $1 billion into the infrastructure behind it. But ProMedica is that here. So one, you've got a region that has significant expertise in the field that they are propagating, right? ProMedica has significant expertise in this multidisciplinary medical innovation space. Secondly, you've got really talented and aggressive people that have a chip on their shoulder. And I love that about the people that I've met in Toledo. They don't like getting short shrifted. They don't like people kind of shying away from, oh, you're from Toledo? They stand up for the fact that they're from this area, they're proud of this area, and when you develop that chip on your shoulder, it's what keeps you up at night when things get tough and you start to think, wow, was this really a good idea? Did I do enough research? Was my lean launch lean enough? You always second guess yourself when you go through a startup into the coulda, woulda, shoulda of how this could have played out if I'd have done this or done that. And that always reverts back to persistence. So for me, before I open it up to questions, because I'd really like to hear what I am not saying anything about Homeward Health, right? Because you can ask me questions about Homeward Health. I like to try to focus on, the law of reciprocity. What can I give to you that you can walk away with, and then you can ask me all kinds of questions, and you can learn about Homeward Healthcare. But what I would like to leave you with is that the only roadmap to a successful startup, I've been in 7 of them. I've successfully raised money for 7 companies. I don't know what the number is now, but after this deal closes, it'll be $70-something million that I've raised for different startups. But the law of rule books and Steve Blank's lean launch system, and Peter Thiel writes this book on 0 to 1, and this is the game plan for growing a startup in this space. There is no game plan. There is no rule book. You have to have a really good idea, a ton of passion, surround yourself with great people, and be ready to pivot, because curveballs are going to constantly be thrown at you that you didn't expect. And if you're not agile enough to pivot, and if you haven't built from a good, technologically sound foundation for the growth of the space that you're going into, the twists and turns, then you're probably going to fail. I mean, most startups do fail. But that doesn't mean that you have failed, and it doesn't mean that the learning experience that you went through isn't really, really valuable. So I come back to persistence, and there's a card that I carry around in my pocket. And it's funny because this president was never referred to as a very talkative individual, but he leaves behind probably one of the greatest quotes that I know of, the greatest passage as it relates to persistence. He said, "Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent." And that was Calvin Coolidge. So, for a guy who spoke very few words, he wanted the words to be just right. And I think that is just right when it comes to startup and entrepreneurship in general. It's just about who's willing to work harder, longer, be creative in problem solving, and at the end, stay true to a principle. So this has been our guiding light from the beginning to the end. And we can talk about how that manifests itself in the product. We want to create better outcomes at lower costs. if it doesn't produce a better outcome for the patient, if the patient doesn't receive better care and become healthier because of what we're doing, and we lower the costs for the system and provider, then we move on to the next thing. Get it out of our way. And that helps strip away a lot of distraction, because we could have gone down a lot of rabbit holes that people wanted us to go down. You know, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? You'll get a ton of that, and it just ends up wasting your time when you don't stick to your core mission. And then the last one I'll leave you with is a good Ohio, I shouldn't say good, probably the greatest inventor other than Thomas Edison that I know of, from Loudonville, is that where he's from? Someplace down in south of Cleveland. Charles Kettering. Anybody ever heard of Charles Kettering? The great General Motors inventor who invented like everything in the early automobile. Kettering said, "The only time that I cannot afford to fail is the last time that I try." Keep doing whatever you're doing. Do it. Iterate, iterate, iterate. And you get enough bites at the apple and you'll get the job done. So any questions that you have about Homeward Health?
What's your pitch? Elevator pitch for this group.
So, you know, with Homeward Healthcare, we bring interactive multimedia to the patient's bedside. And what we do with that interactive multimedia is educate, assess, and align care stratification. So we assess you for your learning style and your health literacy, so that helps your providers to communicate with you throughout your trip through the care continuum. We find out whether or not you're dealing with depression and addiction, okay, because those are all front-end things. Right off the bat, I need to know, to help you, I need to know what's your health literacy level, because I got to communicate with you. What's your learning style, because I want to communicate with you effectively, right? Are you dealing with depression and addiction? Because right off the bat, if I haven't solved that problem, it's going to misinform everything I try to assess from that point forward. So then after I have that, I go into a full psychosocial workup. So the psychosocial workup is a lot of things about your challenges. Do you have good transportation? Do you have a good support system around you? What struggles have you had with your diet, with your physical activity? Do you have trouble comprehending? Do you have trouble maintaining adherence to your medications? Are you starting to slip, dementia, early onset of Alzheimer's? What are the real world challenges? Do you have 12 steps to get upstairs to your bedroom? And now you've got a hip replacement, right? These are real world things assessed because you don't have eyes and ears in everybody's home. You don't know what their medicine cabinet looks like, right? You don't know that they're a hoarder and they've got 15 piles of things just to try to get them through to the bathroom. Okay, so all of those things you find out when you do a full comprehensive psychosocial workup on the patient, and then we can start removing some of those barriers. We can start aligning better post-acute resources for that patient. So it comes down to assessing, educating, and then at the end, aligning everything that you've learned with their best-in-class outcome, right? And then we try to get into this shared goal. Right, and this is really where it gets out of the digital. We also use this, I don't know if it's a mantra, I guess it's just an ethos of digital humanism. We want to be a digital company that brings patient and caregiver closer together in human interaction, not just a technology of convenience, right? A technology that substantively brings this interaction closer together. And that can only happen if the workflow of the provider is also thought about in how it's integrated, right? You can't just always think about the patient, because the nurse and the physician's assistant and the physical therapist all play a role in this care continuum to make sure the patient gets through the recovery process as effectively as possible. So we're trying to think about all of those things, what we can do to support that digitally, and then what, you've probably read these statistics. Your doctor's got 9 minutes with you in a primary care visit, right? Your rounding resident at UTMC or up at Michigan and Hurley, where we have these great case studies with the University of Michigan residents, they've got minutes to assess what they are then going to do to both diagnose and align a care plan. Wouldn't it be nice if they knew a little bit about you in your real life before they came in and made all of these decisions? Right? They don't have that workup. The social worker comes in at the end. It's ass backwards, right? The social worker should have information on the front end so that the 4 days that I'm going to spend in the hospital are actually days where we can start articulating, where we can build rapport, and we can share outcomes. We can dovetail outcomes. Because if I tell you to quit smoking, and you tell me, I'm 83 years old, I've been doing it my way. My grandfather, I'm doing it my way, right? I'm going out just the way I want to go out. Well, that's important for me to know, right? Because now I can align the care plan because I know you're not going to quit smoking. So why am I going to waste 25 minutes on this smoking cessation program and a whole bunch of resources when you're telling me absolutely not? If I die in 3 years or I die in 13 years. My wife died 2 years ago. I'm just getting to her faster. That's a lot of people. It's a lot more people than you think are just playing out the string, and we need to know that. And you're only going to know that through patient-reported outcome measures. We've proven that, right? We've proven in this country over 100 plus years that by lecturing patients and constantly hitting them with the stick, we fail. We need a carrot. Right? We've been beating them with a stick, so we created this thing called Patient Prize, where the patient enters into a shared goal. And if they follow their care plan, and if they realize that shared goal, the goal of the hospital and the goal of the patient, if we both get to that goal together, then the patient earns rewards points, and those rewards points can be transferred into a gift that the patient has chosen, a prize that the patient has chosen. Right? We're big on the patient owning their part of this plan. We're not just going to say, hey, you get an Amazon gift card. Oh, that's great. I've never been on Amazon in my life. I don't even know how to use it. Where is it? What is Amazon? Is it the rainforest? Where am I going? Right? You got to know the patient. If the patient says, I really like a pair of walking shoes, that would be great. Well, we got a $45 pair of walking shoes, right? CHF patient bounces back to ProMedica. Last year, it cost $11,800. You think that it isn't a good investment to put a $45 pair of walking shoes on somebody that'll stay out of the hospital for 30, 40, 50, 60, 90 days and get them off the dime of ProMedica? And that's the kind of value-based trade-off that we're looking at.
Tell us about the kit that I saw back here in your office.
Yeah, please go back and tour and check it out. So when we sell a license, it comes with 2 tablets, 2 spider overbed, these articulating arms that stretch around the patient. So you get the tablets, the cleaning equipment, the headphones. It's a fully interactive, immersive multimedia experience on the tablet. Now, you may have read from the HIMSS press release, IDEO in Palo Alto has now selected us as their startup in residence for this summer. We're not leaving Toledo. We go for 3 months where we get to send representatives to IDEO into their lab in Palo Alto, and we develop the MetaHub, which is the next generation of multimedia facing equipment for the patient. And to make a long story short, it is a screen that comes in front of the patient. It's a large format touch screen. You can go online and read the patent if you're into patent searches. But what Steve and I have patented is both the system of frailty assessment integrated with multimedia. So it has dynamometers hooked up to it. And I don't know if you're familiar with grip strength analysis, but last year the Lancet completed a 15,000 patient study that proved with 82 to 83% efficacy that when a patient falls below a certain grip strength, they're within 24 months of death. 82% of the patients died within 24 months when they fell below a certain grip strength. So it's a key end-of-life indicator. So we've integrated the dynamometer grip strength assessment right into our risk stratification model in multimedia, real time. Patient goes through all of our modules, we get all the patient-reported data from them, we figure out all of the risk analysis and stratification that's going on between their ears, and then we get this huge physical indicator on what the clinical relevance is in their diagnosis.
So that data that's being collected in a home assessment, where's it going?
All of our data flows into a machine learning platform. So we educated this machine learning platform with the 10,000 patients that Dr. Jacques Danze, who's our clinical director, developed at Harvard with his study with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. So Jacques, if you're interested, D-O-N-Z-E, he built the hospital score. I met him at a conference. I told him what I was doing. I said I was really interested in the hospital score, and here's what I want to do with it. And he was like, wow, you just fell down from the sky, because that's exactly what I want to do with it. And we started working on the risk stratification model. So he built he and Miko Malecki right here in town from San Francisco. We do still have a small office in Palo Alto. The model that they built looked at all of the risk indicators that came from the EMR, right? Hemoglobin, sodium, how many admissions, how many procedures in the last admission, was this an oncology visit, was it elective or non-elective, all of this EMR stuff. They take that, and that gives you one value of risk indication. Then they take a whole bunch of other stuff, like public records, claims data, all that kind of stuff that has social health determinants. That becomes a layer of cross-indexing. So if you can picture, I know this isn't the easiest thing to picture, but if you can picture data coming in streams, you've got one data of clinical indicators. This is EMR stuff that comes in about you when you're in the hospital, right? Stuff that your doctor and your nurses are pulling from vitals. And then you've got a stream of data that comes in from LexisNexis, say, and that's a whole bunch of public records data. And then you've got a stream of data that comes in from all your insurance claims, okay? We can't use, all of it has to be de-identified, right? Because some of this, there's privacy layers to this. We're not allowed to see a whole bunch of stuff about you. But we are able to see that number 23974 has a high risk of this, right? And then that all gets populated into the risk indicator. We don't know why, right? That's not our business. And quite frankly, we don't want it to be our business. We don't want to know all the things that are going on with you. We just want to know what the risk indication is. All that stuff flows in. And then when we get the patient-reported data, the stuff that you tell us, right, the actual survey data, now we've got this whole new unique layer, what most people think is the most important layer, right, the psychosocial layer that you're actually telling me. That layer gets cross-indexed against the stuff that's already kind of sitting in the bottom, right, this fertile ground, right, that we already know about you. So we were just talking about this in the back, if I know that you have weak transportation, and I know that you now have just had an injury that decreases your mobility, weak transportation, decreased mobility. That's two legs of the tripod, right? We talk about this. The triangle of isolation occurs now when your support system breaks down. So if now I can get predictive, now I can go to you and say, look, you really have to talk to me if your son or daughter moves out of town, because they're the one that's taking care of you, right? If they go off to school, if they move out of town, we got to know about it. If that patient gets divorced, right? Their wife leaves the house. I got to know about that. If that patient's wife, God forbid, passes away, I got to know about that. We got to look at this because we know that patient is going to become isolated because we already know the transportation is bad and the mobility is bad. So those are the kinds of like cross-indexing of risk profiles that we're always trying to examine and then use to our provider clients' great benefit.
Who's your ideal customer?
Our ideal customer is,
ProMedica.
yeah. Well, no problem. I mean, that's a good answer, right? Because ProMedica is a payer through Paramount, and they are a large health system. Those kinds of players are, but I mean, the Blue Cross Blue Shields, the Aetnas, the Anthem, Cigna, Marriage, the payers are a hugely important piece of this process. But you can't prove efficacy by going directly to the payers. You have to go to the providers to get patients into your system. So we started with health systems. We started with the University of Michigan at Hurley, with Mammoth Lakes, California through the California Hospital Association, with UHS and Valley Health in Las Vegas. So we've gone into some really difficult circumstances, and we chose those on purpose, right? We figured, how can anybody tell us that it doesn't work if it works in Flint, Michigan during the water crisis? Right, we reduced readmissions by 33.4% during the water crisis. We had 5 readmissions that just came back due to lead panic. So you kind of separate the cream from the crop. There's a lot of people out there that'll say, we're reducing readmissions. Yeah, I could reduce readmissions too if I send a nurse home with you. That's a human resource exhaustive process, right? And it's not sustainable. There aren't enough nurses in the world to have one of them babysitting everybody. So You have to find digital tools that can get you a portion of the way there, where the home healthcare nurse that's got 9 patients to see today can pick up the hour of the day that they can get to you.
I have one more question, but I just kind of been drawing this out of you so that these guys understand what the magic that you guys are doing. What questions do you guys have for Joe?
Joe, tell us about your funding. How are you funding?
It's a great question. You mean lack thereof in the beginning? So we bootstrapped this a good portion of the way. We had a working beta that we were playing with. And then Brandon, again, who I've mentioned, and the University of Toledo helped us acquire some grant funding. So we did the Edison grant program. I think that was the first outside dollar, was an Edison grant. And then we did, I think we did 2 Edison grants. Might have been called Third Frontier Grant the second time around. I'm not sure what name they put on it. But those were both very small, like maybe $25,000. And then we got to the point where we were ready to go for some outside funding. We found a strategic partner, found another strategic partner. So it was about $1.5 million in outside funding. And then we got a Ohio Third Frontier grant/loan program. Yeah, CAF loan program. So there's some things that you can do to turn portions of it into a grant if you do the right things and hire enough people, and it becomes an economic development benefit to the region, which we certainly believe it will become. And then now we just are in the term sheet phase, with ProMedica as our next big round of funding. I don't think I am general counsel. I don't think I'm privy to announce the dollar figure yet, right? So we'll just say ProMedica is investing, and a very large Michigan insurance investor is also coming in, health insurance investor.
Was your outside funding local, or what geographic area did your outside funding come from?
So I don't want to doom and gloom this party.
That's why I'm asking.
I have, being honest, you do have to sow. You have to sow a lot of seeds to reap the dollars in this region. So yes, absolutely, we were able to get local funding in these grant programs, but for venture funding, I have never been able to. I've raised money for 7 companies. I've never been able to complete a round in Michigan or Ohio. You got to go. We got most of that money that I mentioned to you from Omaha, Nebraska, and St. Louis, Missouri. So we did have to go elsewhere, And sometimes it's just, not in any way calling myself in this the label that I'm going to use, but sometimes it's the prophet in their own land, right? Nobody wants to support the inventor who came from amongst them, right? Because for some reason, people don't always want to pedestal up people who are right around them, right? Because they want something, I don't know why that dynamic occurs. I've tried to kill it in every part of the world I've been in, because I think, I've invested in my friends, and I don't care if, I've told a lot of friends of mine that I've invested in that, if it fails, it fails. I know the risk. Don't think that, because I'm coming into your deal that you owe me. I like the deal. That's why I'm coming in. I've turned down a lot of friends. So, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. I think that you have to do both. You have to use all the research. Now we have a ton of Ohio people who want to invest. All the VC, you name every VC firm in Ohio, we've now, they're all coming around now that we've kind of proven it. So I think the Midwest in general is conservative about the way, it's definitely not the, hey, you got great user adoption and now I'm going to try to create $1 billion valuation because that's what it's going to take to hire the stock option for the software engineers that are going to come aboard. That kind of thing just doesn't happen in this part of the country. But the flip side of that is when you get those ridiculous valuations, you then at some point have to live up to them. And that's where you see a lot of these companies come crashing down. They accepted a valuation that they probably should have said, No, I don't think we're, why don't we take a little bit, we'll take this much money at this valuation because we can actually make that valuation a reality, right? In the term with this use of funds. So also you have to be strategic about, somebody comes in and says, oh, we had this with Vinod Khosla, at Exponential. You guys are a $250 million company and blah, blah. Okay, well that means what do you want for your money in this, right? And you're going to make us a 250. You can play that conversation out a lot of different ways, but a lot, the other part of it is the investor. Does the investor have your best interest in mind, or is the investor predatory and would love to have your shiny new toy in their toolbox to add to 3 other things that they've invested in? Right? So the teeth in that deal are going to make you bleed to death along the way. So you got to think about all of those strategic pieces, not just whether or not it's coming from the state of Ohio or Michigan or anywhere else. Anybody have?
Are you hiring?
We are hiring. We're going to be making an announcement. We're hiring care navigators right away. These are the folks that go out and do the orientations, work with the nursing staff. So we're looking for people who have some nursing background, some public health background, some physical therapy assistant kind of backgrounds, anywhere in that range of care coaching. We call our care navigators goal keepers because we want them to help the patient keep their goal, right? So it's kind of a different spin on the positive reinforcement and the motivational interviewing. But we're going to be hiring developers probably, if I'm being conservative, we'll be hiring developers in 90 days. Maybe a little sooner. Yeah, we are. We are interviewing as we speak.
Do you think that you'll have a nationwide reach then in a short period of time?
Well, on Tuesday, we have hopefully our final meeting with the largest private health system in the country. Yeah, I do. We were just endorsed by the Academic Health Science Network in the UK as a pilot program that they will pay for with the NHS. So, yeah, we think it's going to have international scope. We think the folks that get trained here in Toledo will be going all over the country and to the UK in the next 24 to 36 months, installing pilots and training the personnel. We're big on the training and the workflow. So many pieces of technology get shoved down nurses' throats. My mom's a 35-year nurse and case manager, so I've had to live the stories of her telling me the horror of the next piece of technology that has been jammed like a square peg into their round world. And we took specific care to be a burdenless technology on the provider, a technology that gives them information, that supports their workflow, that extracts time, that doesn't take time away via data entry, but gives them time to put back into patient care. That's the idea behind this, really, is that if I can give you back, you've been spending 25 minutes per patient going over discharge instructions with them, trying to find out what buttons to push to get them to be healthier, right? Doing this motivational interviewing that social workers and case managers do. Wouldn't it be nice if you could spend 10 minutes instead of 25, and they'd be really good 10 minutes where you already knew all the challenges that they were facing so that you could target and be precise about the messaging that you were sending them? Oh, and by the way, you know that they're a visual learner and they have progressive health literacy, so you know just how to talk to them when you go into the room. That's the world that we want to create.
All right, I'm going to ask the last question, but will you stick around so that people have more that can badger you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Although there's a pizza and a hackathon calling for me at about 11 p.m. at the Toledo Hotel over here. My whole team is going to be rocking and rolling tonight.
What's going to keep Homeward Healthcare headquartered in Toledo?
Randy Ostra, in one name. I was so inspired when I walked out of he painted a picture for me of what he wants this region to become, from a banner, and to have a guy in his position look at me and say that he thinks Northwest Ohio can become the world capital for social health determinants, I mean, that is like, get the passion flowing, right? We're going to be bringing events to this region about big data and how big data can impact social health. So he's got a vision for the event side of it. He's got a vision for the academic side of it. You know, now it seems like UTMC and ProMedica, you know, there's going to be some more synergy in the works. There's this downtown expansion that Justin hinted to of what's going to happen with the reach into downtown for startups. And I think that there are 3 or 4 more startups that need to be created in the social health space that will greatly benefit the ecosystem that we want to be the platform of. So I think there's a lot more in store for this region in the startup space. I think the telehealth piece is going to be big, and the players that come in with really good disruptive ideas around making telehealth more impactful, making remote patient monitoring more impactful. That's the healthcare is going to flatten, right? And everybody in the industry knows this. They know that the ivory towers are coming down. The tentacles of healthcare are going to flatten out. They're going to be out into the home, into ambulatory care centers. You know, your PCP is going to become a higher level of priority, and all of this is driven by payment, right? The payers are not going to pay the way that they have in the past. They're going to pay under bundled patient care initiatives. They're going to pay under ACO, accountable care, life cycle management of the patient. And that's going to drive people to go away from high cost settings, right? Like, this is a perfect example. This is not the tower, right? This is a 2-story agile place where you have specialists over here and they're doing surgical procedures over there. I mean, this is the future of healthcare. This is what, you know, hospitals, they're not going to be building, you know, these, Steve Wolf and I have laughed about this. You know, we just got back from Palo Alto, and they're building 2 hospitals next to Stanford's campus. Now, granted, some very rich person just gave them a bunch of money and said, build a hospital. Okay, so you do what the person has bequeathed to you, right? They can't find a place to park now. Where are they going to park when the 2 places are totally built? There's no parking anywhere in Palo Alto. So, you know, they're not thinking it through. They're going to be largely places. And the really scary part is, and this is where everybody should be scared, when they, especially people who live in Palo Alto, these doctors got to find ways to fill these beds. You start thinking about the economy of scale. I got 350 beds. Am I going to let it be only 200 patients full all the time? Because that's all that's going to need it. No. I'm going to start deciding that this patient needs this and this patient needs that. And that's what happens in these self-aggregating cycles where you build beyond the scope and scale that's necessary. This is perfect, right? People come in and out. It's outpatient. I take just enough care of you to get you ready, to get you out, to get you moving. And that's the way healthcare is going to work. People don't, we've polled hundreds of people. They don't want to go to hospitals. Hospitals are dangerous. Hospitals, people get infections in hospitals. They're not places where you want to hang out for very long. So going out into the medical home, telemedicine, paramedical response. I mean, if I had all the money in the world, I would be going into paramedicine right now. If you've seen the paramedical pilots that are going on, where they do remote patient monitoring, we risk stratify them. We send them out into the post-acute setting. They get monitored via remote patient monitoring. Either they're wearing a necklace or they've got some kind of Fitbit on, and I'm monitoring them through a biometric scale and this device over here. All that feeds into kind of a homeland security center where I'm watching all of my patients on the dashboard, and all of a sudden a vital sign starts popping up over here in an alert, and I send a house call medicine aide right out to the house. These pilots are working. I mean, they're saving a lot of money around the country with these paramedical response pilots, but it takes a company like AMR, you know, the size of these giant ambulance companies, to be able to facilitate that, unless you own a very small community sector. But there's That's where it's at, right? Is on-demand medicine, precision medicine that's on demand.
Okay, we're gonna come back to you in 3 years. And we're gonna catch up with you. Okay?
All right.
It'll be
You got my wheels spinning right there.
a different story.
What does it look like in 3 years?
Okay? Joe Gough, Justin Hammerling, people at ProMedica Innovations, thank you so much.
Thank you.